everybody, welcome to my garage. I'm Andrew Day. Now, since the last time I was showing you my car, big things have been happening and we are ready for the big reveal. Da, 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 da. The engine is fitted.
So here we are, momentous point of the rebuild. We're about to put the, stating the obvious, we're about to put the engine back into the car. We've done our calculations. We reckon it should work. This is Paul, my electrician, who spent the last year and a bit making all new electrics, and there's still plenty of work to be done, but this is an important part of the build. Wish me luck.
It really does look splendid now, and it's fantastic because it means I can get on with the jobs that I couldn't do up until this point, because Paul could only give me 4 hours a week, so it's been a long job getting all the electrics done whilst the engine was out, and I wasn't really able to get on with anything. But now I've been able to get on sorting out the air conditioning and all the little bits and pieces that you can get on with, connecting up the pipes, the cooling, all that kind of thing. And we're getting there. We're really making some progress now, which is very exciting. This is the Emerald ECU, the K6 Plus model. And here is the Emerald Loom, which they had made up to our design, or Paul's design. And Paul's coming in once a week again and sorting it all out, and it kind of a little bit frustrating because he's here for 4 hours and at the end of it you think, well, what's been happening, what's he done? But he does work very diligently, and I'm here with him, and there's lots going on, but you can't really see big results at the end of it. It's just snagging, it's fitting clips and things at the connectors at the end of the cable and sorting it all out. He's working a lot on the fuse box and the relay box over there. And bearing in mind, you know, that none of this kind of stuff was there on the original car, of course. So we've got a fuse and relay box here, one in the cabin and one in the boot for everything at the back of the car. As I say, it is looking fantastic. We are getting there. And I have to say at this point, because the budget has now gone over £30,000 with with the cost of the loom and the ECU and everything, and I've got a little black book here where I keep a record of every penny spent on the car. It is a lot of money. It's more than I paid for the car, in fact, and it's still a long way from being ready. But anyway, I think one of the most important things is that your partner, if you have a partner, is fully on board with particularly the expense of a project like this, because otherwise home life could become a little bit, well, difficult, shall we say. But I'm very lucky insofar as my wife, and bear in mind this is our car, she's fully on board and completely okay with the money that we spend, because I am trying to be very careful. I mean, if it had been kind of an expense no problem for this car, where I'm getting other people to do everything, it would have been more like £60,000–90,000 by now. But I'm doing as much of it as I can, and like I say, my wife is a-okay with everything on the car. As the kids would say on the street these days, she's pretty dench. Oh, no. When I said dench, not as in Dame Judy. Here we go.
You don't like me, 001½. You don't like my methods. You think I'm an accountant, a bean counter, more interested in the numbers than your hobby.
The thought never occurred to me. This is not my wife.
Well, I think you're a sexist, misogynist dinosaur, a relic of the Cod War.
Charming. Shouldn't that be Cold War?
Well, it'll be pretty damn frosty if you don't pull your finger out and get this job done. You think your boyish charm can get me to sign off on all your toys from Q Division? Well, let me tell you, there will be a price to pay. If not with your life, then with spa days, foot rubs, and remembering anniversaries.
Point taken.
Not quite, 001½. If you think for one moment I don't have the balls to pull the plug, you're quite mistaken. So get this assignment done, and done quickly.
Yes, ma'am.
And by the way, why were you designated 001½?
I don't have the balls to tell you. I'm sorry about that. I don't know how they keep getting in. But anyway, let's move on. Now, before I go into some of the specifics of what I've been up to, I'd like to try and explain the difference between what it's like to do a Restomod, which is what I'm doing here, and taking a car back to how it was the day it left the factory, what we call a concours restoration. And to help explain it, I'm going to use the analogy of a jigsaw puzzle. Got a nice jigsaw puzzle here of a Aston Martin DBS. And the thing about a jigsaw puzzle, it's like the concours restoration. Every single piece has one specific place it can go. When you've got the piece in the correct position, you'll know it's in the correct position, and you can move on knowing that all the next pieces and the pieces afterwards are all going to fit together, because that's how they were designed. However, a Restomod is kind of like having a jigsaw and then buying another jigsaw and tipping all the pieces of the two jigsaws into the same box, giving it a good shake, and then trying to make your jigsaw. And where the two pieces don't fit together, you can make up more pieces out of bits of cardboard. I mean, you just make it up as you go along in some cases. So it's kind of what it's like, I think. And a prime example of what I'm talking about here, of not knowing whether the parts that you're making or fitting are going to work further down the line, is the cover that I made for the blower. Now, the blower for the heat and cooling of the cabin is here now. Originally it was two blowers, one on either side, and this one had been removed because of the new brake servo sits here, and that had been removed. And the new blower, the Spall blower, that's the manufacturer, I think, Spall, S-P-A-L. It's more powerful and it's a good place for it to be. And I made a cover. This is the top half. This is the bottom half. And I'll put a picture on the screen here of how it was before I cut it in half. And why did I have to cut it in half? Well, I made this cover when the engine was out of the car. Cover fitted over the blower perfectly. Unfortunately, as soon as the engine went in, it came clear that it's impossible to actually put the cover over the blower with the engine in position. So I had to cut that all the way down the length of it. Then you can jiggle in the bottom section, put in the top section, and then bolt the two together. You know, it's another day, a couple of days of work, fiddling around, messing about, trying to get things to work further down the line. So, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. So much of it, you know, you do a nice job, you make a piece, you fabricate something, and you think, yeah, that's going to be great. And then, whoop, the next piece comes along and somehow it clashes and you got a problem. Also, the mount that I made for the engine fuse box that looked great. Put the engine in. There's a little bit of a problem with it fitting because of the vacuum tube. So I had to get in there and rejig it and rework it. Got there in the end, but it makes the job longer. So come a little closer and let's have a look in the engine bay, and I'll show you some of the things I've been doing. So you can see now where I've mounted the coil pack. I fabricated a base for it. Originally I was going to put it further down there, but it meant if I put it here, the HT cables didn't have to have such a length to them. I did find that this hydraulic hose here kind of clashes a little bit, but I think it's going to be okay. Now hopefully down here you can see the air conditioning pump, and because this is a Jaguar pump that was originally from this engine, or indeed intended for this engine, it wasn't with a pump. I've got that from a scrap dealer, and unfortunately the fittings didn't go on, so I had to, because they're special Jaguar fittings, so I had to get these adapter pieces. That was a difficult thing to work out, simply how to get these connectors on. Then we've got the connectors, and at the moment the system is just mocked up. So if I can just undo that, you can see that the fitments have yet to be crimped. And I've marked that, and when I've got everything together, I can send that off to be crimped. We've got the dryer here, so it runs from the pump to the condensing radiator in front of the main radiator, then it runs over to the dryer, then it runs over to the evaporator. And I had a bit of an issue. So here's the evaporator, and the fitments for the evaporator unfortunately were not for the same thickness of hose that the rest of the system uses. These were for what's called thin wall hose. So I've had to take them to a welding fabricator, and he's welding on new fitments which match the rest of the hose system for the rest of the air conditioning. Unfortunately, I've given him a couple of jobs and he hasn't given them back, and it's a hell of a time it's been waiting for, but you know, that's the trouble. You're beholden to other experts when you go and seek out specialists. You're always a hospital job and not their meat and potatoes of their work. When I bought the car, the original loom for the engine was just sitting here, not on anything, and was exposed. And I saw in photographs of Jaguar XJs that there was a cover here, and that's what I bought from a seller on eBay. And when I got this cover, what I couldn't understand is why these 3 bolt holes didn't line up with the bolt holes on the fuel rail. And I asked someone who sells Jaguars to remove one of these covers and show me what was underneath. And I found that there's this plastic tray which the loom sits on. And this also corrects the spacing of the bolts and means that that fits on there. And I'd like to give a great big shout out to Sacrilege Motors off eBay, because they sold me this cover, and when I explained to them that I didn't have anything like that underneath it, this tray here, They took one off a car and sent it to me completely free of charge. So I was well impressed with that. So thank you, Sacrilege Motors. So this is an example of how you can waste your time going down a blind alley. Because I didn't know of the existence of this tray that goes underneath the engine loom, I spent ages fabricating 3 brackets that meant the cover bolted on in place. But now that I've got this cover, these are redundant and all that time is wasted, and these can go in the bin. Whilst we're here, this is the breather pipe for the cam cover at the top of the engine, and this goes down here, and I know where that is all supposed to link to, but there's a branch off the pipe here, and despite the fact that I took photographs, I thought of absolutely everything when I took the engine apart, I don't seem to have a record of where this goes, and I'm just puzzled as to where it is supposed to link to. So if you happen to know on an AJ16 where this breather pipe is supposed to go to, please let me know. Cheers. Where bits and pieces have needed to be replaced, like the sensor for the brake fluid, I've had to replace that. Everything's been cleaned up, painted or whatever. I've used OE clips before. These were all Jubilee clips, looked very messy, so these are now factory style clips. This is the reservoir for the power steering fluid, and previously this bracket that it sits on was just zip tied to the louvers in the wing here. That meant it was sitting at the wrong angle, and I needed to find a way to get it to sit perfectly vertically. And what I did was create this bracket here, and now that looks, I think, absolutely perfect. And what it was just an old metal box that was a bit of scrap, and I folded it at an angle on the ears here, the edges. That created this shape, and put the bottle at the perfect vertical angle. So here we are inside the car, and what I'm doing at this stage is simply trying to work out how I want the interior to be. Previously, this car was all vinyl on the interior. Black vinyl, all over here, all over here, all over here. The whole thing was black vinyl. So I wanted to have black leather, real leather, wherever I want there to be leather, wherever there was vinyl, but also I want to have wood trim. I've always admired the later cars, the V8 cars, which had a wood trim on the door, all the way around, and in the center console. And whilst many of you I know, that especially the purists, will say, oh, you know, keep it as it used to be, this is a Restomod, and also it's my car, so I can choose to have it the way I want to have it. And all I've done here is mock up a wood interior. Eventually, if I go ahead with this, I will have this hydro dipped, but at the moment I've covered it in vehicle wrap, and I'm liking it like this. I think it's nice. And you may notice here I've deleted the switches for the electric windows, and that's because the vinyl which it wraps around, the switches are recessed, and the vinyl that goes into that recess always lifts up. It never stays down. I've seen dozens and dozens of interiors, and the vinyl always lifts. Or if they've been retrimmed in leather, the leather lifts, or the leather gets ruched around here, where the trimmer tries to get the leather from this surface onto this surface for the clock. Never works out, and I think hydro dipping is going to be the solution there. The thing about those switches, here's one of them, is that these switches carried the full ampage that ran to the motors in the door. So these are really beefy units. Now we've got all new electrics, so the power runs through a relay and a fuse, as it should, and so I can have modern switches, and I decided to put them here because this is a curved surface and it's really difficult to put a switch which is designed for a flat surface there, and I think it's just neater, and why not? I think it looks nice. And I've got a new gaiter here for the gear lever, which shows no fixings around, there's no screws on show, and I think that looks neat. So I think I've tidied up this area and this area completely. The car originally did have a bit of wood veneer here in the binnacle, but because they stuck veneer directly onto a metal substrate, because wood expands and contracts and metal doesn't to the same extent, the wood had cracked and was looking very poorly, and it was a very simple bit of veneer anyway, so I wanted to have something that looks a little bit more attractive. I don't think I would go ahead with this colour, this burr walnut. It's a little bit over traditional. I'm thinking maybe something very, very dark with a reddish hue, this being a red car, or conversely something very light and modern looking. But I'll have to actually go along to the Hydro Dippers and make a decision when the time comes. I've also got to make a decision as to what colour I'm going to have the leather, whether this will remain light in colour. That's actually how the seats used to look, in this sort of whitish leather, whereas now they've been coloured this cream colour or beige colour. So this might all be beige, it might all be black, I'm not sure at the moment, but it's just a matter of making that decision. Down here, this is the panel as it was. So there's the switch panel, that went down here. So you've got a switch bank here, then you've got the radio panel here, and then you've got the panel here for the controls for the heating and ventilation. I always thought that this looked messy, it looked untidy, it just didn't look very nice at all. So I've decided to tidy it up. And also another thing is actually some of the switches are a little bit obscured here because I can't see that panel from the driving position that well. So what I've done is I've mocked up a cardboard template for a panel I want to make that will sit here like this. Now at first I thought I could make this in wood colour as well, but I think actually that might be overkill, a bit too much wood all over. So I'm thinking I might do this in black leather, which is why I've coloured it black. And then I would have over the top of that a panel made of this stuff, and this is the panel I had on the switch plate previously. This is traffolite, the material, and this is used by trophy makers and engravers to make little plaques for trophies, and this is cut and engraved by computer, so I make up the design on my computer and then they make it for me. And instead of just having that one little panel there, I can have this whole panel, one neat and tidy panel, and it's got all the heater control information on there and everything there, the air conditioning switch and everything is all labelled, and then you've got the radio in the middle. Now the thing about the radio is you could have an original radio, which you would then have to have adapted to work with FM radio stations, etc. And feed you can even get Bluetooth fed into it, so music from your phone, etc. But even so, because this is a Restomod, I didn't want an original looking radio there, nor did I want a modern looking radio. So, you know, something like that, it always looks out of place in a car of this age. So what I've opted for is an Android player with a plain fascia. So when it's switched off, well, it neither looks modern nor old because it's just a blank panel. When you turn it on, of course, you've got all the modern things, Bluetooth, and you can have sat-nav on there, the reversing camera, all that sort of thing. But when you turn it off, just a plain panel. In fact, even better than that, when I take the keys out and walk off, I can switch one of the switches here, the radio circuit switch, and that means that the radio can be on standby, and I can actually display the Aston Martin Wings logo on the fascia. So that'll make it look really cool, I think. I've got another gear knob there, which works. Of course, this is not the gear lever from the original car, so we need a different knob. Previously, it had the Jaguar gear knob on there, but this is an aftermarket Aston Martin one. Now, having said we're going to have leather all over here, just the other day, I watched a video from Ian Tyrrell, the Aston Martin specialist, and I had planned to have the top of the dash covered in black leather, and he said that they were black vinyl, one because it was a little bit cheaper, but also because leather dries out in the sunshine. You imagine the sun beating down on the dash top, the leather dries and shrinks, and that exposes the metal underneath. So I've ordered some vinyl, and that will be the only piece of vinyl in the car by necessity. Fortunately, modern vinyl is almost indistinguishable from real leather, so it won't stand out the way the old vinyl did. So we've got a new panel here, and on this panel as it was, there were two courtesy lights under here to illuminate this area so you could see what the switches were, because they're not self-illuminated. What I'm going to do, or what I have done here in this mock-up, is I've added a little number plate light, so a little motorcycle number plate light, and that hopefully won't be too bright and will just illuminate this area so at night time you can see what you're looking at. Because this Android player has no physical controls, everything is controlled by a menu, and driving and going into menus on an Android player is distracting and not really advisable. So what I've got here is a wheel controller like Mercedes have to control the volume, skip the track, whatever, mute it. And whilst that does look a little bit out of place, I admit it is very bling. When I get out of the car, particularly at a show, if I want to, all I've got to do is pop that out and put it in the glove compartment, and or in the armrest here, because it operates via Bluetooth. So you just pop that in there and it's good to go. These boxes here, I've put them here because I want to have an armrest, and I've just put them here to mock up where I want the height to come, and I think that's about right there. So it's not in the way of my elbow or when I change gear, but when I want to rest my arm there, that's going to be perfect. So I did buy an armrest from China, but it wasn't wide enough. It didn't look quite right. So I'm going to make one from scratch, and we'll see how that goes. The rear view mirror is going to be different, because these days I don't feel comfortable not having a camera, a dash cam, to record everything that's going on. And rather than have the original mirror and a dash cam stuck on the windscreen, what I've got is this rear view mirror, which will go up there just like the original one, except this one has got a built-in camera. So that's just neater, and then we'll hide the wire away. So what else can I tell you? The door cards will be like the prototype. I don't know why they changed from the original prototype design to what became the production design for the door cards, but the prototype door cards actually had some storage space, plus they had more room to fit a speaker, so that's why I'm going to recreate the prototype style of door card. So yes, decisions, decisions, decisions. I'm sure you've got an opinion. You might want to pop that down in the comments below, but I've got to go with my gut instinct and make my own decision as to how I want the car to be. So, well, I hope you approve, but if you don't, there you go. So, yeah, I think that's it for the interior. Well, I had to quickly show you this. This just arrived. I got this from Peter Scott of Heritage Designs, and this is the flip tail, which is going to improve the aerodynamics and is all part of stopping the smell of fumes getting into the cabin. Plus, I think it looks pretty awesome. So it's going to need a lot of fettling. It's obviously not going to fit straight away first time, as all these cars are individual, but I think that's going to look fantastic. So there we go. I could go on for hours, but I think we'd best call a halt there. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'm going to be taking off a little bit of time from the car to take advantage of the nicer weather over the summer to get some landscape gardening done and a little bit of maintenance. So check back with me in the autumn and I'll have some more videos then. In the meantime, don't forget, if you've got one of these cars and you're not a member of the DBS Chums, let me know at this address and I can get you enrolled. So thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.